shot taken from the Hotel Olympia, where we were staying in November '99 on a planning meeting for Cooperative Banners. Brenda came out halfway through the week, and we had a couple of reasonable days, but very cold. Now this is a shot straight into the old town, and on the left you can see part of the castle wall and an old tower. We see that a bit closer up later on when we go into the town, and behind it you can look out and just see the derricks on the port. My shaky hand. And that's the Dome Cathedral. It's a Russian Orthodox church. They're working on it all the time, but it really is quite nice now, inside and out. And as we pan further right, you start to see some of the many spires in the city. The one in the foreground is the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, and the others, well, they're too numerous to mention really, but they're all looking very attractive, and if they've not been done up, they're being done up. I wish I could tell you what the big building in the top left-hand corner is, but I'm afraid I can't. But we're talking about the suburbs now of the old town, and the large church in the centre there. And now looking down into the normal part of the town, the outside the old town, and we can see the very Germanic sort of buildings. In quite good condition really. I mean, some of them are a little bit tatty, but generally speaking they're pretty good. As you move further out it gets more Russian, and you've got the old blocks of flats which they built everywhere in the 60s, and in fact here it is now. This is the accommodation suburbs for the millions, and they're not really a pretty sight, but are they much worse than we've got in places like Birmingham and Leeds? I don't know. Certainly a lot poorer out there. And at the bottom with the flags is Stockman, I think, quite an upmarket shop. There's 2 or 3 very upmarket shops in the place. That's one on the right there. The white building, I'm pretty sure, is a bank, but the very snazzy glass thing in the middle now, that's definitely a bank. In fact, it's the biggest bank in Estonia, which is actually largely owned by the Swedes. And now you can look out towards the other side of the harbour, where some visiting ships are in. And it was from here, I think, that the Tallin sailed, the ship that went down a couple of years ago on its way to Finland. No, it was the Estonia, wasn't it? On its way to Finland. And in the midst of all this high-tech development which surrounds the Olympia and just outside the old city, there are little pockets of really old stuff that still exists. Some quite strange buildings, and some of them brick, some of them actually still wood, and just little pockets here and there. And this is one of the sort of less upmarket places. Oh, walkabout time. And this is just a few yards away from the hotel. I couldn't help this old building catching my eye, perched along with 1 or 2 other old wooden buildings, and then just behind it is the impressive, brand new, very stylish, modern bank. Now we're just crossing over towards the old town, You can see the tram lines and everyone wrapped up pretty warm because it was a cold day. We're talking what, -2, it got down to -5 during the trip. Now that's looking back over towards the theatre and the opera house, a lovely tasteful little tram in the foreground. And we went to the opera to the ballet the previous evening and saw a ballet called Krat, I think it was called, meaning the goblin. Now here's the main entrance to the old town, just opposite the Hotel Viro, and you get some very nice old city walls with the gates all in good condition. Just this side of the walls there are a few stalls, modern sort of stalls, which open pretty long hours actually. And they're a sort of slightly more upmarket version of the stalls which you see further on. There's Brenda, well wrapped up against the cold. No hat on, but we sort that out later. And now we've gone inside the town, just inside the gates, and looking up the street towards the main square. And that's the spire and the church in the main square. This is becoming, it's still being worked on as you can see, but this is becoming quite a smart shopping street, and most of the fronts of these houses, since I first went to Tallinn about 4 or 5 years ago, have been refurbished and are now looking pretty smart. The towers always looked in pretty good condition to me. I'm not sure if they worked on that, but certainly the frontages of all these buildings have all been cleaned up and restored, and it's now looking quite tasteful. But they're keeping the actual charm of the place as well. Now this is just inside the walls, and this and another market area not far away are peopled almost entirely by very well wrapped up little old ladies, and they sell an amazing array of jumpers. Supposedly most of them hand knitted, although I think some of them are machined, but jumpers, scarves, hats, all sorts of stuff if it's made of wool. This little street, which is a pretty one, runs up from the area of that market up towards the main square, and off it's got a number of little shops, quite nice shops, pottery, silk, embroidery, basically the arts, and now quite expensive actually, but really good. Now we're in the main square itself, and I'm standing on the steps of the Indian restaurant, as you'll see the sign in a minute, and decided to have a look at these party of school children being shown around. There's Brenda again, having a sort out. And it's a big square, and a very open square with all sorts of interesting houses and buildings surrounding it. Once again, because they're working everywhere, you get the inevitable pile of sand, but in the background you've got the church, which is not a working church now. It's actually an art gallery down below and a museum. But there's no shortage of churches in Tallinn. You don't get too much traffic in the centre because they have a restriction on the city centre for motor cars. They have to pay to come in, and that does keep the traffic down in the middle, which is nice. You always get a few, but it's not a thoroughfare like you find in many places. And there go the children on the back into the square, and having a look at one or two of the nicer buildings. Street lamps, very pretty. And then this rather nice lace shop with the model, the dummy standing outside. And then as we go shooting out of the square, things not quite as smart, but still interesting architecture. And this line of shops here, I'm sure, when the place has received a bit more attention, will be another upmarket area in this city. And I'm pressing the right button now to get a little more detail against the light. It's all technology, isn't it? And this is looking out at the city, just below the Dome Cathedral, to another pair of spires, and then panning around on the approach road, past some of the official buildings. Town hall and embassies are up there, and then to the approach of the dome by the old city wall. Lovely building, really nicely cleaned up. And you can see that by and large it's in really good condition. It's showing its age there, but actually, considering the fact it was put together out of stone and a mortar made of egg white and other local materials, about 400 to 600 years ago, it's done pretty well. And some of the detail work, we couldn't film inside this cathedral, but it's just as colourful and decorated inside as it is outside. So, up the steps we go. And the wall, which you've seen already, but from a new perspective, and some old statue work in the gardens. I have to get my guidebook out to find out what that is. By now we were getting pretty cold, I mean really cold. It was about -2 or 3 and there was a good breeze blowing too. And this is the building just opposite the Dome Cathedral, which I say is surrounded by the embassies and the official buildings. Nice skyline, isn't it? Apart from the odd satellite dish. And then back to the dome again.